Hi class, I'm talking to you today actually from the step of my little teardrop camper, and today we want to talk about compassion fatigue and really the subject of self-care. And I'm going to give you some information as we go forward and some little clips of some of the things that I do for self-care, but actually this is one of them. This is my little teardrop camper. It's 10 feet long, absolutely completely that doesn't include space inside, so it's pretty tiny. So it's a tiny little house, but it brings me an enormous amount of pleasure, and I'm most relaxed when I'm out camping. And this is my favorite time of day. The sun is getting ready to go set probably within the next 30 minutes, and so it's a great time of day. I can feel the breeze, I can smell there's a lot of flowers around me, smell the flowers, and it's just a great way to decompress. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to start thinking in terms of ways that you take care of yourself, and if you don't take care of yourself enough, how you can more. And this is especially true for anybody who does trauma work. I've done it my entire career, so there are times I just get tired, and I get just tired. I don't want to hear any more stories. I don't want to listen to the news. I don't want to do anything that's going to get me riled up again, because everything I do is around this one subject: death and dying and trauma. That's all I do. So I always say, when you're doing your own self-assessment, if you come, you get a glass of wine and you drink a glass of wine and you relax, that's fine. I mean, that's a common thing. How many glasses of wine is a problem, and you have to pay attention to that as well. If you come home and you grab a bottle of wine and a straw, you might have a problem. This is when stress reaches its point of we need to do something about it. This is not the answer. And even if you get a glass of wine, 4 glasses of wine equals this bottle. So don't fool yourself. Let's not take care of ourselves in ways that are maladaptive. So what I want to do, I'm going to go through some of the concepts of compassion fatigue. The main guru in the area of compassion fatigue was Charles Figley, and he was actually at Florida State University. He had the Traumatology Institute there. He has since gone to other universities, but he's still around and still publishes prolifically in this area. And I will tell you, if you'd like to share this video with your co-workers or if you're doing trainings, I'm happy for you to share it, or to take pieces of it and do something on your own. But it's a subject we need to talk about, and it's especially important if you're going to be supervising people. So what we're going to talk about in this lecture are the signs and symptoms of compassion fatigue, where you would want to pay attention in yourself, if you're supervising other people, what you might see. And then also this mind-body connection. Most of this course has been around understanding the neuroscience around the stress response in the brain. This is no different. We're no different than our clients. And so we have our own stress response in our brain, and we have to pay attention to that and what our perceptions are and how we're taking care of ourselves. And then also, how do we control stress? Because it doesn't help a lot if we identify it and then don't do anything about it. And stress can be very addictive. People can get on that oh my god roller coaster and not really want to move off of it. And so paying attention to that and understanding that. And then I'm going to talk to you about one method of doing that, and that's called gratitude journaling or gratitude awareness, and we'll do a little activity around that. And then finally, talking more about self-care and balance, and I'll show you some of my ways that I take care of myself and what I've done through the years to balance myself. And everybody's going to be different, because you're all different on how you decompress and how you relax, but the main message is to make sure you do it in a healthy way. So I will see you in a few minutes.
So I've listed for you here the signs and symptoms of compassion fatigue and the challenges that we face in compassion fatigue. If you look at the warning signs here, they're pretty significant on what we would need to pay attention to and the problems that they would cause us in work or at home in all of our different settings. So just take a look at those for a moment, and we're going to talk more about the kinds of things that might come up in the work environment. Now, you've seen this slide before, but I want to bring it up again in the concept of compassion fatigue, because this idea that we are really our own thoughts, that our reality is made up of our thoughts, is so important to pay attention to when we're learning self-management skills and our self-awareness skills. And in compassion fatigue, sometimes we're going to be the ones to recognize that we're extra cranky, or we're irritable, or we're coping poorly when we get home. So we're going to have to pay attention to this mind-body connection over and over again. What are we thinking? And then how are we feeling? And we have to take responsibility for that, because depending on your boss or your supervisor, they may or may not be that tuned in. Now, I've borrowed this concept from the discussion on emotional intelligence, and I've pulled out some components of it for you. This is where we're talking about our own role in compassion fatigue. So one of them is be very aware of yourself and your strengths and your capacities, what your limits are. And also have some self-confidence that you're going to be able to work through issues. We add much more stress to ourselves when we don't believe in our own capabilities. And then you want to keep perspective, and this is extremely important. I was in a workshop the other day, and the people were talking about, they were city planners, and they were talking about, we have to keep reminding ourselves that we're not saving lives here. And I thought that was a really good way to look at their situation, because it's true, they're planning the future of a city, but they're not saving lives. So real important concept for them to pay attention to. So these are just some concepts to be aware of when you're talking about compassion fatigue, making sure that you're paying attention to your own strengths, that you're focusing on what you do well, and that you stay grounded. And we're going to talk about some grounding activities in a minute. Now, if we were in the classroom, I'd be having you do this in our classroom setting. I'd be asking you to take out a piece of paper and write down the 5 most important things or people in your life. And so you would do that. And it's important to really get in your mind the 5 most important things or people in your life. And if you knew then that you only had a year to live, would these 5 things on your list change? Would you get rid of anything? Who or what would you add if you knew that you only had a year to live? And then knowing that and narrowing that down, what would you do differently about these important things or people in your life in the days ahead? Would you reach out more? Would you get rid of baggage? Would you get rid of the things that don't matter? Would you stop sweating the small stuff, to coin a phrase? What would you do differently in your today life? And the final step of this is, what could you do better now? And that keeps perspective. That's a grounding activity. So when we're putting all this energy, if you've ever laid in bed at night and just stewed over something that someone said, and then think about that person's probably not even thinking about you at all. You're not even, they're sleeping like a baby, but you're putting all this energy into a person that really doesn't matter to you. These people aren't really that important in our life. They're irritating, but not to take that much energy from us and make us stress and have all this worry and take time away from our family and the things that we should be enjoying. So I would like you to just pay attention to that. This is going to be part of our discussion post this week. But that activity of paying attention and really being grateful for the things that we should be grateful for. So here are some final thoughts regarding compassion fatigue. When I was researching this chapter for the book, I was really surprised at how much there was out there on this subject. There's so much research out there, and it's something that you could offer to your coworkers or to your employees. But remembering that self-care is more important than anything. We are one of the few countries in the world that doesn't give adequate time off. And so not paying attention to our own self-care is kind of built in. We actually reward these kind of crazy long hours, and that's not healthy. And if you're a supervisor, I encourage you to not encourage that. Take your weekends off, don't answer emails, turn the phone off, disengage, get regrounded and recentered. And this mind-body connection is so important because stress is poison to our body. We've talked about this throughout this whole course, but it is pure poison, literal biological poison to us. So we've got to really work on this and keep perspective on everything. And then also anything that brings you joy. I've got exercise. When in doubt, go for a walk, breathe, walk, breathe, walk, breathe. And then try and find some balance in your life with the things that bring you joy. And in a moment, I'm going to share with you some of my random things that bring me joy. And there's just so much more. But I really work hard at keeping that balance. And the longer I've been in practice, the more important I know that that is. So I hope that you're going to also work to bring yourself joy.